What is up, geeks and geekettes? It's a very special movie review from the Countdown City Geeks. My name is Ted, aka Steady. Joining me on this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Mutant Mayhem instant reaction is one and only David Lozano.
Cowabunga!
And we also got the legend himself, Joe Garcia.
Hey, what's up, man? I'm excited to review this one. I can't wait, Ted.
Absolutely. If you're just joining us and you haven't seen the movie yet, do not worry. We're not going to spoil anything
I
in the
might.
beginning, first half of this program. We will save all spoiler discussions for the second half, and we'll be sure to give you guys a warning before we get there. But this is going to be our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem instant reaction discussion. And the way it's going to work is we're going to start out just by giving you our general overview of the film. And I'll get the conversation started by saying I was happily surprised and with my overall sort of experience with this movie. I didn't have any expectations going in, but no matter what, it far exceeded anything I could have imagined. And I didn't have high expectations or any expectations because I knew going in that it was going to be PG, it was going to be more sort of marketed towards kids or the younger generation, the youth of the audience. And no matter what, I still had a great time. So I don't think this is just specifically for kids out there. I think that old fans, the OGs like us, and new fans, there's a lot to appreciate and love about this film. But overall, I had a great experience with this. I enjoyed it a lot. And we'll talk a little bit more in a second. But first, I want to hear from David Lozano your general overview about the film.
I loved it. I was pleasantly surprised like you were. It was fantastic. All the actors, the voice acting was terrific. Nicholas Cantu was awesome as Leonardo.
Yeah.
We interviewed him. We had high hopes for him and he delivered, man. He was awesome. He's going to be a star. And you can check out our interview on Countdown City Geeks. But yeah, overall I loved it. I'm a Turtles kid from the 90s. I had all the action figures. I had the Technodrome, I had the module. I mean, I had almost every variant of the action figure they made, and I loved it, man. I love the animation style. I love the music. I was totally blown away that Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did the soundtrack.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, oh my god. I love their social media soundtrack. It's probably the best ever in my opinion. But yeah, overall, it was great. I did have lower expectations, but that animation style gave me a really good feeling because it feels like a lot of these movies are kind of heading towards that type of style. And I mean, it's the Turtles, all these characters, all the villains that we knew: Leatherhead, Bebop, Rocksteady, the classics, Wingnut, Ray Fillet. I couldn't believe he was in there. Yeah, yeah, voiced by Post Malone. That was awesome. And yeah, man, I loved it. I was so happy. They Seth Rogen and crew pulled it off. It was great. I thought it was good. Yeah.
Joe, what about you, man? Your general overview about the movie.
Yeah, going in, I kind of knew that it was going to be a little bit different, and I didn't know if different was going to be a good different or a bad different, because this type of I guess animated feature is going to be kind of something that's going to stand on its own, you know. So I was like, okay, the animation style is something that's very unique and it stands out. It's on par with what they did with the Spider Verse or the animated version of that, and also with Puss in Boots, kind of in that same style. And the best that I can describe it as, especially with this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem animated flick, is it kind of it's reminiscent of almost like a puppet, So I started thinking about that, and I'm like they're kind of paying a little homage to the old school movies in a way, because those were puppets, Jim Henson and whatnot was the workshop, the designers that were behind the original costumes for the film, So this
Yeah.
kind of remind me of that same style, kind of like that puppeteer kind of style, a little bit more of a graffiti aspect added in there. So it was really nice. I thought it was really well done, and the music was pretty cool, especially with Trent Reznor being one of the guys that's pulling the strings behind the scenes here. he doesn't do a lot of movie soundtracks, but when he does do them, there's something special about him. You know, he's a great uh, a great musician in his own right, and being able to be a little bit more creative and doing his thing for feature films is pretty badass. But I liked the overall storyline. I liked the animated the animation in here, and I like the fact that they were able to include a lot of these mutants. You know, they had everything from you, and it's not a spoiler. You saw Bebop, you saw Rocksteady, you know. Yeah, what was the name of that one that they had at the end too? That was really funny, Scud Bug or something like that. That was freaking hilarious, man. I forgot the name of the bug. What was it called? Was it Scud Bug or something like that?
Something
Uh,
like that. Yeah.
give me a second here. I gotta like wingnut.
No,
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 Wingnut was the bat.
was the
Wingnut
bat.
was a bat.
Yeah.
Uh.
But that Scudbug one was pretty funny, man. I like that character. It was hilarious. It didn't talk any English, you know. It just talked bug language or whatever. But I thought that character was pretty hilarious. The turtles again, I thought they were voiced really well, you know, because it says Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You can't have an adult voice in an animated film that's geared towards kids, and I thought that was a nice touch where the voice matched the turtles. You know, they were all teenagers, and it
Yeah,
really sold that aesthetic and their mannerisms and the things that they were doing, just having fun, sneaking off, you know, that kind of stuff. It was a lot of fun to see them have in their own element, you know, being kids, you know. So I really think they did a really good job at selling that, you know. I just thought
absolutely.
the film was a lot of fun. In my opinion, it was a lot of fun to watch. I had my little niece with me, and she doesn't really know a lot about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And full disclosure, I didn't really tell her anything. I wanted her to experience it and to let's see what she thought of it. And she was sold. She enjoyed it. She loved it. You know, she was telling me how much she enjoyed it, and this is her introduction to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle franchise. So if it's her introduction, it kind of got me thinking, this is what they're doing. This is the introduction to a new generation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I was like, that's really what hit home for me. It's just like kind of like with Star Wars, you know, with my kids, they did the new trilogy, and I was able to share that with them. And now with this version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it's geared towards this younger generation. This is their introduction to it. And I thought they did a marvelous job.
Yeah, I love the story. It's a captivating story because it's something new. It's
Yeah,
refreshing. It's TMNT from a whole different angle, and just starting off with a much younger cast for the voices was it's never been done before. You know, make them not only sound like teenagers but act
act like
like
them.
modern day teenagers. If you don't have teenagers, I have a 16-year-old. That's what they talk and act and look and sound like every minute of the day. So just know this writing team, these directors, these casting folks, they nailed the Gen Z modern day teenager
Their mannerisms.
because everything their slang, their lingo, like all of it was spot on. I was laughing because my son's sitting next to me, and every time they do something that he would say or do, I'm like, "Hey, that's you right there on the big screen. That's you right there
Yeah.
saying Riz this girl up. That's you, man. That's what you sound like." It
Yeah.
was hilarious. You talked about the animation style. You're right. It's it kind of feels a lot like the Cross the Spider Verse movies, that whole Miles Morales trilogy. But it actually gave me more not puppet like Joe said. To me, it felt more like a perfect hybrid between animation and claymation, and it almost had this very stylistic urban claymation feel. The only thing that reminded me of that, but it's not the same like one for one, was the PJs. The PJs claymation series that starred Eddie Murphy that came back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was this claymation, but It was a very urbanistic style choice, and that's what this felt like. But this was a much more perfect synergy of claymation and animation, if you ask me. And I think the reason why they do that is because all of the action sequences, all of the scenes that are a little bit quicker, faster to film, those look better in an animated style, while the details look better in a claymation style. So it's a perfect hybrid. I absolutely loved it. And I'm also a massive Nine Inch Nails fan. I've seen them 5 times in concert now.
Wow.
So yeah, I knew when they announced the movie, or when they announced that Trent and Atticus were going to be composing the music, how much that was going to be an epic sort of motivation to watch this film for me. I could not have imagined a better score for this film. It brought such a different energy than what you would expect a Ninja Turtles film to have. It's funny because there was a little Easter egg reference of an old turtle song from a film, back in the day,
Yeah.
and the rest of the time you're experiencing this electronic indie industrial music, and it's such a great stylistic choice when you compare it against what you're watching, which is honestly, it's a comic book animated film involving mutants, but instead, in the background of everything, is this indie pop slash electronic industrial music, and it's such a great juxtaposition. It kind of gives you this massive room to play in emotionally, because this music isn't so one for one. You know what I mean? Like, you would expect what you hear in the animated series or what you hear in the Nickelodeon series, like that kind of music. But instead, it's this much different world that they're exploring, and it's absolutely wonderful. It's a great match. I hope they come back for future projects, which we'll talk about a little later on. But I haven't even talked about the cast yet. The cast was fantastic. Nicholas Cantu didn't sell this enough. He told us it would be good. He didn't tell us it'd be this good. So shout out to Nicholas, friend of the show, Texas native, and man, he was incredible as Leo. Honestly, we'll get into the details and stuff in a little bit, but I also want to get into maybe our Geekcast rating now before we get into the spoiler. I think we should do that, right? I think we might do Geekcast rating before we get into the spoilers. So, if you don't know, if you're just watching us for the first time, we do this thing where we do a Geekcast rating. It's on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the lowest. Let's call that Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles film, the first movie he did, and 5 being the original OG, the '90s film, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because that one is still top dog, if you ask me. So that 1 to 5 scale. And we'll go around getting everybody's rating. And I'll start with this one. I think this was a fantastic first edition reboot for this film. I love the music, cast, story was refreshing, new, innovative, creative, and I give this one a 4.5 out of 5. I now pass it on to David Lozano.
I think I want to give it a 4.7. It was really, really great. I'm, of course, one of those turtle kids that love that original live action film, and I don't think anything's going to surpass it in my mind personally. But yeah, man, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's hard. You can't rate it as perfect, but I mean, I'm still trying to find stuff that I didn't like, but there was
It
really
wasn't long enough.
nothing.
That's the only thing.
I thought it was a decent length. I know you told me before the film it was short, but to me it felt like a decent length. Yeah, so I mean, my rating, I think it's super high, but I mean, like I said, there was really nothing that I could really nitpick. I love the animation. It's very interesting that you said that, Ted, about how the claymation and that animation style was like infused together. I didn't see that, but now that you say it, I kind of see it like in the turtles design and like the head shape. Um, I know that the creator was inspired by like sketches. I could see the sketchiness of it, especially the moon scene where the moon was like really bright and it looked like it was unfinished. And I think when you say that the film is kind of like the sketchbook style, it feels like it might not be that watchable, but it totally was. They pulled that aspect off well, and it seemed like they made all the right decisions to make a great Turtles film. So, I mean, I don't know if I can find anything wrong with it. So yeah, I'm giving it that rating. Yeah.
Awesome. Joe, what about you, man?
You know, I'm the Russian judge here, Ted. You know, I'm gonna
We
keep it
know,
real.
we
I'm gonna
know.
keep it real, man. You know, I'm a big Turtles fan. I love the '90s, series of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I even love the theatrical versions of the films as well. Thought they were really well done. Great cast, great acting, and you couldn't not argue that some of the fighting scenes were really good as well. You know, the choreography and all that. Ernie Reyes Jr. and whatnot. You know, was really well done. And I'm looking at this as it's standalone. Not trying to go ahead and go back and nitpick. Well, they didn't do this. Well, they didn't do that. For what it was, I thought it was done really well, and it
Sure.
was really well executed. On top of that, with the soundtrack and all the graffiti style art, everything came together, and I thought they did a miraculous job. However, though, it is a kids' film, so I have to go ahead and take that into account as well. It's not geared to where you're supposed to go ahead and critique every little aspect of the film, but
Right.
overall, the length and all that, I thought it was pretty good. Because again, it's geared for children. So their attention span isn't as long as an adult's. They're gonna want to go ahead and watch it and then leave. They want to sit there for 2.5 hours trying to get through a movie. So I was fine with the length. The only thing is that I can critique is probably the storyline a little bit. There's some parts of it that I feel kind of waned a little bit, things that didn't really need to be there. And there was other aspects of it which kind of slowed things down a little bit, even though it goes along at a healthy clip. They could have done a little bit better in regards to that, but overall, I'd have to go ahead and give it a solid 4, in my opinion. I thought it was really well done. Not saying it was a bad movie by any means. We've reviewed a lot worse, Ted. This one was really good, really
It
good.
was. It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, man. And this is going to be our overall Geekcast rating, a 4.4. Not too shabby, as I always say. Awesome. Well, if you haven't seen the movie yet and you don't want to be potentially spoiled about anything, this would be a great opportunity to pause this video, come back, watch the rest of it, and then let us know what you thought about the movie once you get a chance to check it out. But here we go. Your spoiler warning has been delivered. Um, I don't have to get into too much of the details, but I love that there's so many things for old fans to appreciate and recognize, like the sort of attitude slash behavior of the turtles. Raphael, who's known as the hothead of the group, the more aggressive one, they played into that very well. Leo, who's always been the pseudo leader of the group, there was previous films like Ghostbusters. I'm wearing the shirt. Sorry, Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze, where like they would sometimes mimic Leo because he's too much of like a daddy's turtle or too much of a goody two shoes. Yes, Master Splinter. Yes, Master Splinter. Like that kind of thing where they would make fun of him. Well, they wouldn't do it often in the movies or the live action films, but they did it a lot in this one. And it kind of just fit perfectly, like all those little things about the turtles, they really played into to kind of give you that nostalgic thing, giving you something to recognize these four brothers about. Um, I loved sort of the fresh take on everything, meaning like bringing all these mutants into the fold. Um, Seeing Bebop and Rocksteady not being next to Shredder in a movie, it was a little bit uh, odd at first, but I'm coming to the I'm coming around to the idea of like seeing where this might go, and maybe they team up with him, later down the road, and that's still a thing that we'll kind of get to. Um, I love that there was this thread or this subplot in this movie where they're just trying to be real teenagers, like the movies don't touch on that. they kind of touch on them trying to have a life in general that's valuable to them, but there's never this like we just want to be kids. Like we just want to go to school. We just want to go on dates. Like that's never sort of a big motivation for them in the live action films. And for this one, it was beautiful to see. It's powerful. It's emotionally engaging when you kind of see that. And they gave this great arc to Splinter being, their father figure and being sort of this overbearing minority parent. And I say that because minorities have this stereotypical where this stereotypical kind of thing where their parents are always a little bit more overprotective and overbearing than other parents, and this kind of plays into that a little bit. um so great arc for Splinter, great story for the turtles themselves, and all in all it up to a very engaging movie going experience, I think. And so I kind of lean into those things a little bit more because we've seen a lot of Turtles movies. There's been five live action films, and there's been at least two animated films, I think, if I'm counting correctly. I think one was a made for TV movie, and then there was also the TMNT one that came out years ago. So I need you to show me something new if you reboot this franchise. And you succeeded by incorporating all these new elements that I can sort of, you know, um, grab onto and gravitate towards. So, all in all, I absolutely loved it. What are some of the things that really worked for you guys or didn't work so well? Dave?
I love the fact that they changed some stuff, some iconic stuff, really. And for me, it worked. The whole origin story, I think, with Baxter, I think dropping the ooze down, and Master Splinter didn't learn from a master. He actually learned from VHS tapes, and they all learned together how to do karate and defend themselves, and they got it. And yeah, the fact that you point out that the turtles it hadn't been concentrated on before at this level, that they just wanted to be normal teens, they wanted to go to high school, they wanted to be out in public, and they wanted to be accepted. And like you said, that's a wonderful story, very analogous to kids that are maybe a little different, aren't like don't fit the same stereotypes of like the jock. I mean, I feel like kind of like it was a nerd type story, like
Sure.
the nerds that kind of feel like left out. And you can watch this film and be like, hey, look, you can be accepted. But nowadays, it's a whole lot easier, I think, for teens now, because
It's
all the
harder
stuff that
now.
we loved. Well, it
Oh,
depends on the way you look at it. All the stuff that we loved when you were younger. Now that's the popular thing.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it was a beautiful story. I love that twist that Bebop, Rocksteady, and all those classic villains, all those action figures I had, they became a group with the Ninja Turtles in the end. It sounds very cheesy the way I'm saying it, but it worked in the movie. I didn't expect that. I expected them to fight each other and really kind of end the movie with them established as the four against all those villains, but they came and lived in the sewer with them in the end, and that was awesome to see. I never thought, like, in a million years, that I would actually like to see something like that, where Bebop and Rocksteady were like helping move furniture around. And yeah, man, this cast is so awesome. There's so many big names. Jackie Chan as Splinter, Ice Cube as Superfly, Rose Byrne as Leatherhead. That's a crazy one. But I mean, I loved it, man. Like I said before, that there's so much in there that just kind of surprised me and kind of really delighted me, because I kind of loved all of the choices they made. Um, the Superfly character, I don't think that was a character from Turtles canon, right? That was a brand new character they made, or was that something related to Baxter Stockman?
I think when I heard from, I think Ice Cube said this, that Baxter Stockman was going to be your main antagonist, but they wanted to separate the mutant from the scientist. So then they
Okay,
added
I see.
Superfly to the
Right, right.
mix.
And Giancarlo
And
Esposito was Baxter, and he was only there for like maybe 5 minutes, and then he was
yeah,
gone.
That's Teddy's friend, man.
friend of the show, Giancarlo Esposito, Moff Gideon, Gus Fring, incredible guy. I also feel like, man, I wish he would still be around, but maybe that's a twist that could come at a later time.
Yeah, interesting.
TCRI could keep him like, imprisoned for these 15 years, and maybe Shredder will need him or something like that in a future project, or maybe we'll see Krang bust him out in a future project, something like that.
Oh, I got to go ahead and chime in here, man.
Go
The
for it.
thing is that
What do you got, Joe?
with this version of the turtles, a lot of the things they did different to go ahead and separate itself early on, I thought was a good decision. Especially what you guys were saying, the origin story of Baxter. You know, Baxter's origin story wouldn't, I don't think, kind of sit well with today's society. Things are different now, and a lot of things they used to do in the '80s, was kind of like, I guess, it was a different time.
Was it
You know,
politically correct?
Yes, it wasn't politically correct. There were a lot of things that weren't politically correct back in the '80s. One of the things of the OG series is that it was very violent. You know, you go back and watch it, and you see the turtles going against the Mausers and the Foot, and chopping people up in half, and they're showing them getting impaled and whatnot. It wouldn't sit well with what's going on today. So I think the choice to go ahead and really in the beginning differentiate itself right out of the get go, and letting you know this is a different type of turtles for a different generation. And I thought that was a great move. I like the origin story of Baxter, and then him, like you said, dropping the ooze down the drain, and you get to see the other mutants in little test tubes, and he was talking with Superfly, the little the little fly. He wasn't little, he was a big fly.
Yeah,
And he's talking to
Thick
him,
boy.
and he's talking to him like a father would talk to a son. We're going to be a family. And I think that was kind of a sad thing as well. And
Yeah,
it kind of set the tone for the film. At the
yeah,
core, this is about a family dynamic, kind of showing you that no matter how different you are, at the end of the day, everybody wants to be accepted. Everybody wants to be able to have that love, admiration, and be able just to go out there and just be accepted in society, and just the little things, as something so simple as just going to school, just being a teenager, being able to experience things like that one scene that they had where the turtles, and it was a sad one, they're always having to go ahead and sneak around in the sewers, and they're just grabbing supplies in the
yeah. That
under the
subway
dark.
scene where they're hunched
Yeah,
over.
they're kind of
yeah,
in the
Yeah,
darkness, and you're seeing the contrast between that and then just the humans just living nonchalantly, in the subway, not having to hide, just waiting for the
yeah,
train. Then they're going back home, and then they see that the movie playing for Ferris Bueller, of all
yeah,
things too, in the park. They're in Central Park, and the people, the humans, like they say, they're just there watching a film, and they're just looking at it, and they're like, we want to be like that. We want to go have fun. We want to watch a film too. And then they kind of like, just they're just kind of sad that they can't partake, so they
yeah,
go back home, and then they have to deal with that, where are you? What are you doing? That kind of thing. And it's kind of like it was a contrast of they're feeling bad already, and then they go home and they get scolded. It's what happens in real life when you're a teen and a kid. Things are awkward. You're just trying to find your footing. You're trying to figure yourself out. And I thought the film did had a really good contrast for where they started off and their intentions of we're going to do this, and try to unravel the mystery of what's going on and why these things getting stolen and who's Superfly and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, the message is clear, and it's all about, trying to find yourself, trying to go ahead and appreciate family, and you're stronger together, and not only that, but I think another beautiful thing in here too was you can't do everything on your own.
yeah,
And I think that's what a lot of kids kind of lose sight in. They think, oh, I can do this all on my own. I don't need help. Everybody needs help. And I think that's the beauty of it is you're stronger together, especially when you lean on your family. And then by doing that and making friends and showing people by your own actions, that you're trying to accomplish something good, people will follow you in the end, and they're going to go and help you. So help comes from unexpected places. But the beauty of it is just showing you the dynamic of family and acceptance, and also what they were able to do with the mutants in the end. And when they were, the full disclosure here, one of the scenes in the end is trying to bring about destruction, of the world with that Superfly. And then when the turtles come in and interject and say, y'all don't have to do this, y'all can come live with us. And instantly the mutants are like, that's a concept we never thought of. We can live with you. We don't have to do this. And then they started kind of changing sides in a way where they're like, I want to come live with y'all in the sewer. It sounds like you paint a nice picture, what life is like down there. We can be a family, and I thought that was a beautiful thing, kind of like, don't worry, man, you don't have to do this. We'll adopt you, you know? So I like that. I like the message. I thought it was a really good message for kids,
It's
and
great.
it was a great message. And not only that, but you're looking at the dynamic of what is a Turtles movie, and at the end of the day, the Turtles movie at its core was always about family. You had the dad figure in Splinter and the kids and the turtles, and they never wanted to listen to the old man. Oh, he's crazy. He don't know what he's talking about, but at times, just like in this film, in the OG film, the turtles would get in some sticky situations and have to bail them out. Good old dad, and here they get.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things that had me laughing in the film, and I know a lot of people were laughing too, was the milking joke. And the dad Splinter's like, don't get caught by the humans. They're gonna take you and they're gonna milk you. And they're like, we don't have nipples. And then April said the same thing. April and they go, they're gonna what do you say? They're gonna kidnap us and they're gonna milk us. And she goes, y'all don't have nipples, So then the ironic part of the whole thing is when they finally get captured, and then what's her name? Cynthia Utrum is
Yeah.
saying, we're gonna go ahead and take blood out of you, blah blah blah. We're gonna milk you, and they connect them literally to a machine that's called the milking machine.
which which is very dark because there was that reminded me so much. I think it was a Blade movie.
Yeah, Blade
They put Blade in this, I want to
coffin,
say a cell. Yeah, it was a coffin,
coffin. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they had blades that were slicing open his wrists, and the turtles, the only thing that was kind of holding them down were these like handcuffs on their wrists. And so I in my head I'm like, so is how are they getting the blood? Are they cutting their wrists open? There's like no other way you can imagine the blood, being
Well, they had their
milked
backs
from
to it. I
them.
thought it was going like through their shells or something. I didn't
yeah,
I
think
I
about
thought
the
it
hope
was.
wrist part
so.
of it.
Yeah,
I hope so
Yeah.
because the blade scene is the only thing that popped into my head. I'm like,
no,
ooh,
I'm
this
with
is
David.
dark.
I'm with David because I think when you look back at that milking machine, they had like some
Yeah.
type of like little spikes or something on the base or on the back when they were put up against it,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think they were getting milked from their shells or something like that. It was crazy, dude. I thought that
that was
whole scene
wild.
was funny. It was wild. They're like, "Oh my god, we're gonna die. They're gonna milk us to death," and
That's wild.
everybody in the audience was laughing. They thought it was
Yeah.
hilarious. So it was a good scene. It was a good scene there, and it was a good film. And I guess that's the differences is what really set them apart because again, the main difference is the story arc of the mutants themselves. They all find
Sure.
out that they were all created. Their creator is Baxter, which is different take, and they all kind of like, oh, we're cousins, so it's like they instantly say, oh, we're family already. So I thought that kind of set a good tone right off the bat. They weren't really trying to murder and kill each other like they did in the OG film, So a lot of good things came out of this one. I think it's a very good first film. Looking forward to the continuation of the seeing where they're going to go with the story. But one of the things that I took away from this whole thing is Cynthia Utram. I want to revisit that. To me, she seems more like Krang, even the pink sunglasses, the mannerisms that she had on her face, you look at her and then you look at pictures of Krang. It's very similar, man. Very similar. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go in the second film and you find out that Krang's in her waist or something, kind of like he was in the OG film with the
Ah,
knobs, kind of hidden out of the way, and that's just a suit. Because they're going after a lot of high tech, let's say, equipment. They have a lot of high tech equipment. They're needing blood and all that kind of stuff. And full disclosure, if you don't know who Krang is, he's the guy that was inside that big old strongman suit in the OG series fighting along Shredder. Oh, he came from Dimension X. So he's a tyrannical leader from Dimension X, which is kind of like this world where there's just raging war against each other. So that's what Krang does. He just brings about death and destruction because that's all he knows. So I think that in itself was interesting to me, that maybe in this version, Krang is actually a female, a woman, So they're changing things up. Okay, I can go with that. But I'm thinking Cynthia is Krang. I mean, what are your thoughts? We'll go with you, David.
Yeah, I totally love that theory. I didn't even think of that. Um, but maybe Cynthia is actually Krang before the mutation, and she just
Yeah,
becomes the brain with the eyes and the little arms, and then she's placed into whatever mechanical device that she needs to walk around or float or whatever. So I think that's spot on. I think you predicted something that's going to happen in the future because it felt there was a familiar aspect to that character, like you pointed out
yeah,
before, and it was like, man, I think you hit it right on the head. I think it's Krang, and then of course the mid-credit scene, she calls upon her main henchman, the Shredder. So that's I think you connected those dots.
what
that's
about you, Ted?
interesting. Yeah, no, that's interesting. It hadn't crossed my mind, but if they decide to go that route, I'm all in with it. To the folks that say like, oh, they might be changing too much, or like that's not how it was in the comics or the animated series. Like, to that I say, we've had 5 live action films. You've had 2 animated movies. You don't want to do it the same. You don't want to hit the same beats. You need
Yeah,
to try new things. You need to take risks. You need to make it refreshing for folks. You need to be innovative with your story. And so I'm all for them changing up things, as long as Shredder doesn't have a magnetic sort of weaponry thing going on like he did in the first Michael Bay film.
yeah,
That was just too
No.
much for me. So yeah, let's go ahead and skip that part. But if they, I love what they're doing with this. I love how they're changing it,
Yeah.
and it's. I mean, honestly, like one of the last scenes is the turtles going to high school, and it's like, wow.
Yeah.
After like
Unmasked, which we've
yeah,
really never seen that before.
yeah, and to me, it's like after 30 years, 30 some odd years, how this old this franchise is, I'm like, this feels so new. This is such a
Yeah.
new feeling. This is vastly different new territory than anything else we've experienced. Just seeing them unmasked, for one, is yes, we've rarely seen them unmasked, although it has happened, and it's always
Yeah.
jarring when it happens because you're like, "What
Yeah.
do you mean your eyes aren't connected to the headbands?" Um, but yeah, no, they're walking into a school and they're interacting with other humans other than April, and so this is
Yeah.
well,
wildly different territory, and to me,
April's
it's
thing was funny
exciting.
too. April's thing was hilarious. Puke
Oh
girl.
my god, Puke Girl! That was like I was the whole time sitting there like, no, they're not gonna do it. They're not gonna do it. They're not gonna do it. They did it.
And I really want to point out that story too. Her through line, her arc was
Yeah,
fantastic because a big thing with kids doing like public speaking in school. I mean, it's nerve
Yeah,
wracking. You get so anxious, and she did the broadcast, and of course she got the nickname written on her locker, April O'Puke, and then they do the backstory behind it, and they show her doing like the school news broadcast, and she just like throws up everywhere, and it's very comical. But I mean, I think a lot of kids can kind of connect to that and see that familiarity, and then she gets the courage at the end to do the big person news in Times Square all around the world pretty
That's
much,
cute.
and enable the turtles and get the story out for the people to accept that they're the good guys. They're trying to
Yeah,
help the
because they're
city.
painting them as
So
villains. Yeah.
yeah, and that was a wonderful story. She still threw up a little
She
bit,
did.
I mean, but she got through it. She did it. I mean, it is April O'Neil's first story, and it's a up and coming actress actually. By the way, I don't know if people have seen The Bear,
Oh
the
yeah,
FX
that's
TV
a
I
good,
show,
have, yeah.
that's a good
but
series.
yeah, her name is, I believe it's Ayo Edebiri,
Io.
and yeah,
Yeah.
she's do Io. Okay, Io. Okay, yeah, she's doing a lot of big stuff. She's being cast in a lot of stuff, so she's like up and coming.
And
So
she's
look out for
fantastic on
her.
The Bear. If you haven't seen The Bear, Jeremy Allen White, who's the lead, I know him from Shameless. I didn't grow up, but I watched him grow up on Shameless, and I always
Mm.
knew he was a fantastic actor. And now he's like on top of the world, doing multiple things. And Io, who's in The Bear, she's incredible in that series, so I'm glad to see she's in this as well. All in all, like the cast is stacked, and they're all fantastic in
Mhm.
this. And like you mentioned, April gets an arc. Like I had mentioned earlier, Splinter gets this great, sort of parenting arc. He gets this
Jackie
revelation.
Chan nailed it.
Oh yeah, he was
Yeah.
great, and the brothers have this fantastic motivation throughout the film that you can't imagine is going to get fulfilled because we've never seen the turtles living like normal people in society. So you're like, okay, they have this dream, but it's never going to come to fruition because
Did,
you've never seen it. And when
yeah.
it happens, it's so damn interesting. And
Did you
now I
get the
can't wait to see
pun?
what happens next.
Did you get the
Which
pun in
one?
the movie? The funny part of the movie was when I was talking about milking, right?
Sure.
That was a running gag throughout the movie. But every time you saw them sneaking off somewhere and they were grabbing supplies, they always had a gallon or two of milk. It was hilarious, dude. Every time I saw them, they're always talking about milking, milking. And every time you see them when they're going out for supplies, doing a supply run, they always have milk. So I'm like, they're talking about getting milked, and yet they're going out and getting milk. It's like the
Yes.
irony and the whole thing. It was funny to me. I don't know if
There's
you all caught that.
there's so many great one-liners. There's like multiple dad jokes from Splinter in this thing. Um, he's trying to be cool and he's trying to relate with
Oh,
his
the
kids, and
surprise
he
party.
the surprise party, and he tries too hard. You can order anything you want, guys. This is the total restaurant
Oh, this is
experience,
pizza.
but you have to order pizza. It's so good, and they're
Yeah.
doing new things. This story is so innovative, and I keep using the word refreshing because it is. It's like a breath of fresh air.
Oh, and I remember the name of the
Yeah.
bug after all, that character that Splinter finds a friendship in. It's
Yeah,
Scumbug. Scumbug.
scumbug.
Yeah.
Scumbug
More than a friendship. Wow,
finds friendship.
Yeah.
that
That
was
was hilarious,
something.
dude. Yeah.
Uh,
And she doesn't talk English. She talks whatever gibberish bugs speak.
Almost like a
Yeah.
Tasmanian devil type of
Yeah.
well, you heard what
dialogue
it
there.
was. It was a cockroach.
Oh, okay.
And the
Ah.
He
reason
was
why
friends
he's
with it.
so enamored
Kevin.
with her is because his best friend, when he was back as a normal rat, his best friend was a cockroach.
Kevin was his name.
Kevin was his name, and then he
And he
died,
ate him.
and
He
then he
ate
ate
Kevin.
him.
They stepped on him. He goes,
That
they stepped on Kevin, and then I ate him.
and then I ate him. If that doesn't tell you that gives you the entire tone for this movie, like right there when that happens. So it's just great. Yeah, this is a great film. You at home, if you're watching this video, let us know what you thought about it. Who was your favorite character in the movie? What was your favorite moment? Your favorite joke? There's a lot of them to choose from. I can't praise this movie enough. I don't think it's perfect. That's why I gave it the rating I did. But I do think like it is a solid reboot for a franchise we thought you honestly couldn't reboot anymore. Michael Bay tried it, and we weren't all in on it. So, this is great. This is a great first step in a new direction, and I think people are really excited to see what's coming up next. And there's a lot coming up next. Nickelodeon and Paramount are all in on this new franchise. A sequel has already been greenlit by the studio, and they've already also announced a series that's going to tie into the movies directly. It won't be the exact same style. I read that it was going to be just a 2D animation style. It'll probably be in the same vein as this, but less 3D characteristics, I think. But still the same turtles. And if you can get the same voice actors, I think you're doing a great job if you do that. I think they'd be all in for it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem drops August 2nd. That's this coming Wednesday in theaters everywhere. Shout out to the cast, the crew, the creators, including Mr. Seth Rogen, the musical composers, Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross, everybody involved. They did a tremendous job. And again, another shout out to Nicholas Cantu. If you haven't seen our exclusive interview with him, he's fantastic. He's just a great kid. I say he's a kid, but he's like 20 already. But he's a great kid and native Texan, so we have a ton in common. And he's kind of a homeboy. He's a hometown hero. Big San
He's a
Antonio
Spurs fan,
Spurs
Joe.
fan. There you go.
Of course.
There you go. Shout out to Nicholas. Thanks everybody for watching. Be sure to follow us on social media because we got a lot more movie giveaways going on the rest of the summer as well as into the fall. So be sure to check us out for more past giveaways and also catch us at some of the local events in the San Antonio and South Texas area. The Countdown to the Geeks. My name is Ted, aka Steady. Joining me on this TMNT Mutant Mayhem review is the one and only David Lozano.
See you guys. Go watch it August 2nd. That's this Wednesday. You can go early, support this film. It's the start to a awesome rebooted franchise that we all love.
Absolutely. And the legend himself, Mr. Joe Garcia.
Yeah, thanks for watching our review and our non-spoiler review and our spoiler review. If you like what we're doing, go ahead and make sure you support the show. You can see right here, it says at Countdown City Geeks. Make sure you go and subscribe, like, and share the video. Make sure you go and get the word out. And also give us some love, man. We appreciate that because we wouldn't be able to do this without your continued support. So make sure you give us a support and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It always helps. And also, if you're going to go and check out the content that we're doing across the board for everyone here that's involved with the Countdown City Geeks, make sure you go and check out countdowncitygeeks.com.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. And don't forget, go ninja, go ninja, go. I
If
made
you
it
know, you know.
funny.
You got to look it up.